Okay, so the audio should be working pretty solid. Real quick to my YouTube people who are asking about like T-mode and things like that. It'll come back when it comes back. I'm not in the position right now to do it, so it's not. Everybody else, today we are talking about this essay here that I had seen passed around through one of the members of my Facebook family, or my family on Facebook, and it's one of those things. It's one of those Gish Gallop things. If you didn't see my previous video on YouTube, then you don't know. But if you're new here, awesome. This is cool. So here we go. I'm basically announcing, or rather, saying this to family members. So like if Mark is around or if Terry is around, hi. This is how I prefer to do like these types of things. Me typing on my phone is really hard. I don't like doing it. It's awful. Like again, Gish Gallop is when let me see, actually let's get the F. Gish Gallop. Alright, so the Gish Gallop is a term for an heuristic technique in which a debater attempts to overwhelm an opponent by an excessive number of arguments without regard for the accuracy or strength of those arguments. So, like I have a big problem with things like this because a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about will read these things. Maybe to about here, and then they'll go, cool, I like this, I agree with it, and I'm gonna shoot it out to everywhere else. They neglect to read what they're actually saying in between these lines most of the times, and then they get down to this part that they didn't even see. This is a percentage of people. I'm not saying this is everybody. I'm not even saying that this is the person who shared this to Facebook that I went up against. This is the part that is scary. This part is scary right here. I don't even really want to address this bottom half, because this bottom half is written by either a lunatic or somebody who really hates America. So I don't really like this second half, and I think it was written by somebody completely different. The person who wrote this up here is just noticing a few things that don't kind of jive together, and they're thinking that they're good arguments. But we're going to go through one by one, and we're going to see if that's the case, if they really are bad arguments. So let's do that now. I'm going to try to make this quick. The last one I made was about an hour long, and I don't want it to be an hour long. I don't want to waste anybody's time. But when you throw out an article that has a Gish Gallop thing and it's 30 different points, it's going to take as long as it's going to take. Okay, if plastic water bottles are okay, but plastic bags are banned, you might live in a nation or a state that was founded by geniuses but run by idiots. Fair. I mean, okay. All right. So how do we fix these things, right? Like if it's run by idiots, that means that you and the people who think like you are not voting, because those idiots are actually voted in by the public. This is what we do here. It's America. So, yeah, these small provisions like this where they're banning things, or right now we're dealing with COVID and all the shutdowns, and there's arguments about whether it's better or worse economically. It's like, okay, those are good arguments to have. You're letting the people who are in the government run these decisions. And that's why you are seeing what you're seeing. All right? So I actually, I don't disagree with this. I don't, again, this, if we were to argue this point all the way, it would go down to probably change or whatever it's called, global warming type stuff, like that economic type change. So I'm not going to go into that because that's not what we're arguing. We're arguing the article, right? So this guy clearly has an issue with the government, seemingly, with this statement. He thinks he's being maybe restricted too much. Although, if you're being restricted by not using plastic bags, I mean, Utah has plastic bags. Places that don't have plastic bags, I think maybe up in Oregon, or they'll charge you a tax for not recycling. You have to recycle like your soda cans or stuff like this. This is all in an attempt to stop pollution, especially in the oceans. Plastic is not biodegradable in most senses, so that's why they're trying to run that. But that's a different argument for a different day. All right, number 2. If you can get arrested for hunting or fishing without a license, but not for entering and remaining in the country illegally. You might live in a nation that was founded by geniuses but is run by idiots. Okay, so again, you're going to hear the trope of founded by geniuses, run by idiots. If the founders were around today, there's no way they'd be able to govern. They have no idea how deep or how ingrained we are globally at this point in things. We talk about the omnibus bill that people had so much of an issue with, of all the money going to other countries. These are deals that we have made and have continued to make for years. These are things that actually Trump was cool with okaying 4 or 5 months ago before it became big in the public's view. This is just government, global government, run as normal. And then we get down to the local type stuff of licensing for hunting and fishing. I personally think it's silly that I need a license to fish or hunt. However, for environmental reasons, I can see why they do it. They want to curb humans hunting too many of one thing. I don't know. I haven't done a whole lot of research into it. I think it's a little bit silly. Licensing is a little bit whatever. But like, and I have the same argument for people who like make lemonade stands. I think in Utah specifically, a kid is not allowed to make a lemonade stand and sell lemonade on the sidewalk without a license to sell. It's like, come on now. I've seen situations of it, and it's silly. However, let's go to the second part of this. It says, but not for entering and remaining in the country illegally. If you can get arrested for hunting and fishing without a license, which I don't know how many people are actually getting arrested for those things. They might be getting fined. I don't know how many people are getting arrested for what would ultimately be, I'm assuming, poaching. But not for entering and remaining in the country illegally. Okay, so now we're going into what I think this whole video is going to kind of be centered on, immigration. This guy seems to be a little upset at immigration, or whoever posted this mutated form of this argument is pretty big mad about immigration. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think people do get arrested. This is why we have the ICE agency, right? We find the illegal immigrants and then we deport them. We're going to get into an argument a little bit later about this. And when I say argument, I'm not saying like, I don't like what you're saying and I'm going to get mad. I'm going to say we're going to discuss it later. Because there's big implications. It's a big issue. Immigration is big. Immigration is big right now. Abortion is big right now. All of these things are kind of big, hard to argue things without doing some research. So that's all I'm trying to do, is provide some fact-based research. All right, here we go. If you have to get your parents' permission to go on a field trip or to take an aspirin in school, yes, that's a true statement. You do have to do all those things, but not to get an abortion. You might live in a nation that was founded by geniuses, but is run by idiots. What's interesting is the very first point he makes up here, or state, here he's not. He's saying that the entire nation. I actually had to look this up because I didn't know. I'm not a woman. I don't really have to deal with abortions. I don't sleep with people. So it's not an issue. Shoot, what did I just do? Oh, damn it. Okay, so like that's not an issue for me. I don't have to deal with the abortion argument, but this is one of those things. It's kind of a toughie when you get down to it. But this is a little bit of a false claim here. You might live in a nation that was founded by geniuses but run by idiots. Now, abortion, when you go and you look at the current laws on the books, I think it's like 30 some odd states that require both parents' permission. And then you get down to like 5 states, you only have to have one parent. Like a huge majority of our states, which means a huge majority of our country, you need to notify at least one of the parents. And that's it. You need to notify the parents. Majority, all right? Very few states have it to the point where you can just get an abortion willy-nilly if you're a minor and you don't care. How does he frame this, though? If your parents can in school but not to get an abortion. So, again, like, if you're a 23-year-old lady or woman and you're pregnant, like, why would you need your parents' permission? Seems a little strange. Seems a little weird. So this guy clearly is against abortion. Okay, nobody likes that situation. It's an awful situation. But it's interesting. I feel like this guy is really, really mad at government overreach, but he's totally okay with government overreach in this situation, it seems to me, because he doesn't specify that it's a child. Because if this is a 16-year-old and the age of consent in that state is 16, it again is a tough issue. But this end here is a little bit false. But not to get an abortion. Most of our states have notification laws that you have to, for Planned Parenthood specifically, that you have to notify the parents. So again, false information. That's what I am trying to fight against. These usually are just platitudes, things that are said that sound good, but when you get into policy and how to do these things, it's not feasible. It doesn't work. So if you must show your identification to board an airplane, cash a check, buy liquor, or check out a library book and rent a video, but not to vote for who runs the government, you might live in a nation that was founded by geniuses, but is run by idiots. Okay, so now we're going into election, of course, because of the election craziness that's been going on for the past 3 months, unnecessarily, or it's 3 months, it's crazy. Yeah. I mean, when you're trying to get, 300 million people to vote, like that's, oof. When you're trying to figure out who should be the leader of the free nation, right, the United States, that's going to be tough, especially when all the states have different rights and different ways of doing things. And then you get hit with a pandemic. Yeah, it's going to be pretty crazy. It's going to be insane. So I guess their claim here is that you do not have to show ID to vote. Yeah, I guess. I haven't really looked into this much, but all I do know is that there's been a lot of upkeep, a lot brought to the table of this election was fraudulent. There was a lot of false voting. We have so many evidences that just didn't get put into court, which is complete nonsense. Those courts, and three of the judges, were actually chosen by Trump. His own Attorney General, William Barr, also said that it was a pretty solid election. So, I mean, there's just no evidence to prove otherwise. So if we're going to the broad scheme of should elections be better ran, absolutely yes, then I agree. However, this guy seems to, again, this post seems to indicate that no, the election is fraudulent. And then, even then, so the whole thing is that the government's run by idiots. It's like, okay, well then vote. Vote. It's the best way. I think the dude in Georgia, the Republican electioneer guy, whatever the title is, when he came out, he said the best way to prevent election fraud is to vote. People need to vote. People need to vote. That's why I encourage people to vote. I don't care who they vote for. I've got many friends who told me they voted for Trump. I did not. Doesn't matter to me. I want them to vote because I want to vote, and I want them to vote, and I want us to have a nice little debate. Most people hate politics. I love it. So it behooves me to actually have people vote, and it behooves people who say that election fraud is apparent. I don't think it's apparent in the sense that it changes much. All the stuff that did look fishy, they investigated, especially in Georgia, in the on election night when they had shut down the building or whatever. There was a lot of things like, oh, the box was under the table. They debunked every single one of those claims. No court has really done much. I think the only case that they had won in any situation for the election fraud was Pennsylvania, maybe, and I think it was a provision to allow the electioneer watchers, the election watcher people, to move 6 feet away instead of 10 feet away or whatever. I think it's the only thing that they had won, but other than that, yeah, there was no wide scale evidence of election fraud. If in the nation's largest city you could buy 2 16-ounce sodas, but not one 24-ounce soda, because 24 ounces of sugary drink might make you fat. You might live in a nation that was founded by geniuses, but it's run by idiots. I think my comeback to this would be, okay, well, what about seatbelts? Are we cool with seatbelts? We like seatbelts. Because once we start deregulating some of these things, you're going to find out real quick that human beings will make the lazier choice. I'm a lazy person, admittedly. And man, I 100% would probably get a large soda for a long day at work. And I mean, lucky me that I don't have to deal with being overweight if I don't eat correctly. Lucky me. I'm just genetically, it doesn't really bother me much. Whatever I eat doesn't really much matter. But there's people out there who do have this issue. America is pretty generally obese, and this is a thing to curb the general health of Americans. Now, you can argue that there's a better way to go about it, and that regulating it and forcing it upon people might not be the best thing to do. Sure. But yeah, this one's a local thing. This is get out there, do your civic duty, right? Be involved when that voting card comes your way. Read into those amendments and those provisions that they want to pass, and do your research. And because it seems to me that this guy, whoever wrote this, doesn't really know much about how the government works. Because if you're going to complain, it's like, okay, we'll do something about it. Vote. That's the easiest thing you could do. Vote. Doesn't seem like this guy does that, or maybe he does, but only for the big scheme things like senators and presidents, but not the local things like provisions and amendments. So again, this is what I'm seeing, is like if I was to debate whoever originally posted and wrote this thing, I don't think that they would be nearly as knowledgeable about how these things actually get done. If an 80-year-old woman who is confined to a wheelchair or a 3-year-old girl could be strip searched by the TSA at the airport, but a woman in a burqa or hijab is only subject to having her neck and head searched, she might live in a nation that was founded by geniuses but is run by idiots. Okay, so TSA this original thing was written in 2013, and originally I believe it was by a guy named Fritz Edmonds. I think I looked him up. Let me see here. Fritz Edmonds. This is the earliest that I could have found. So this guy here, if we're looking at his thing, he's a capitalist and originalist. Originalist is a constitution thing. So he's an originalist constitutionalist in favor of less government, lower taxes, and more personal freedom for everyone. So yes, so to me this guy seems like, he doesn't say Republican, doesn't say Democrat. Seems to me like this guy's very, very, very libertarian, very Rand Paulish. And if you don't know who those people are or what I'm saying, then it's like, okay, well, you need to probably research a few of these things to understand where you are at in the world. Because libertarians, as much as I can tell, they do not want, they want as little government as possible. They want all the benefits of police and firefighters, but they don't want anything else. They don't want assistance for poor people. They don't want assistance for minorities. They don't want any of those things. And that's what a libertarian seems to be these days. So, again, they want to be free. They want to be free. But they also want to make a bunch of money from the government. It's very, very strange. Libertarians are a little bit strange to me. But so when we talk about the TSA, again, this is like government overreach. What? Why I shouldn't be. And then they feel, the people in burqa and hijabs are only subject to having their neck and head searched. I don't know if this is true. I think the TSA makes everybody go through those little things where you have to put your hands up, and then I don't think that they do that. But if they do, it's like, okay, well then bring it up. If you see that being the case, I don't see this happening very often. This seems like a very, very, very low percentage situation, having 80-year-old women and 3-year-old girls strip searched. But then the woman in the hijab is not allowed to be strip searched. I don't think that that's true, especially with these things. These things, I'm pretty sure that they run everybody through those. Again, I haven't done a whole lot of research on the TSA. I don't do flying very much. It doesn't much bother me. Whatever, right? I'm actually of the opinion that everything we do on the internet is already tracked, and I think that's the truth, right? When I talk to my friends about buying a new computer, suddenly I'll go on and I'll see, oh, here's a computer ad. Oh, hey, do you want to buy a new computer? I just see these things more often. I just think that that's how the algorithms work these days. The more stuff you post on Facebook about the government being awful, the more things you'll see on Facebook about the government being awful or whatever. Like, it's just how the algorithm works. It keeps people in their little feedback loops. And I think a lot of the anti-TSA thing is pretty similar. I don't really much care. It's like, alright, whatever. If it catches a dude on like with weapons or whatever, and then he doesn't end up being able to hijack that plane that I'm on, I'm all for it. I could really care less. Again, I think the government already is in our lives, right? This is one of my big things against the Second Amendment. Is one of the big arguments for it is that we have to have a gun to rise up against the government. It's like the government's going to screw us over. Now, a good argument for the Second Amendment that I do like is us having a bunch of guns so that, like, let's say Canada goes rogue and decides, well, we want to take over America, and they just start invading, they're not going to win because our people, I mean, we have, what, 10 to 1 gun ratio for people in America to guns. Like it's crazy. Like there's 10 times as many guns, I believe. What was that ratio? I should look it up. I shouldn't be talking out random. Let's see. Guns to citizens ratio. I'm pretty sure it was 10 to 1. United States estimate of civilian firearms per 100. Oh, okay, so it's 1.2 to 1. Okay, gotcha. Seemingly, right? If we extrapolate those, there's 120 guns for 100 people. Okay, so there you go. We have more guns than people. It's how it is. It's America. This is what we do here. If your government believes that the best way to eradicate trillions of dollars of debt is to spend trillions more, you might live in a nation that was founded by geniuses, but is run by idiots. What's interesting about this is the people who founded this nation, Alexander Hamilton, actually wanted to go global. He wanted to have a federal bank because of this. If you're in debt around the world to all these countries, you have to pay them things, you become part of the government. Now let's take a trip back to 1778 or whatever it was, whenever we were trying to figure out, well, what do we want to do? How do we want to run things, right? And if we had decided, well, America's just going to be America, we're going to only work on American land, we're America first, we're not going to deal with France, we're not going to deal with England, we're not going to deal with any of those other big powers, we're not going to be a part of the global trade, we are just going to be our own thing, we would not have been a powerhouse throughout the next 200 years. It would not be the same America. It couldn't have been. There's no way. If you don't play the game, you don't get to win the game. America does not win unless we're part of the game. So when we talk about trillions of dollars of debt, that's the game right now. That's the capitalistic, globalized game that we play. And it's a game we're losing right now to China. And it's a game we could be winning pretty easily. But I often find that people who share this sentiment don't really understand that. I still don't wholly understand how being in debt trillions of dollars is good for us. But there's arguments for it. And it's like, oh, okay, cool, interesting. I need to learn more about it. But I do know for a fact that had we have just been like, nope, like we're North Korea, we only do our things in-house. North Korea is so tiny. They have no pull globally. They have no allies politically. It's no good. It's better to be in debt and being a powerhouse of the world and running the show than being North Korea all on its lonesome, shooting rockets into the ocean. It's way better. I think this is a deeper conversation. And the other thing is that what's interesting is people will tell you, well, we need to knock down the debt. It's crazy. We need to knock down the debt. We shouldn't be spending on crazy things. It's like, okay, I mean, I think I agree with you. I think a lot of people would agree with you. The difference is, what I usually find is that people on the right, mostly Republicans, want to spend trillions of dollars, and they'll happily do this on things like war or defense or boosting the military. We've heard Trump say this just months ago, actually. Or creating completely different divisions of our army or our armed forces. And doing that, and nobody bats an eye at doing those types of things. But when you want to cut those things, it's like, no, we cannot cut those things. But then when we talk about education or we talk about infrastructure, when we cut those things, or people, they call them handouts, they're services to minority groups or poor people, those things get cut all the time. They get cut all the time, and nobody bats an eye. It's really interesting. Both sides play this their own way here, and I feel like I'm on the side of, you know what, if we're going to go into debt, and anyway, I would rather that money be spent here at home on infrastructure, on education, than overseas in the Middle East on drone strikes and killing children and all of those other things. Like, that's a little bit of a skewed argument that I just laid out there, but I'm a Bernie Sanders kind of guy. The more that we focus on our education and our young people, I think the better. And I'm actually okay with trillions of dollars of debt so long as we are able to finesse our way into a better deal globally. I mean, the shirt I'm wearing and the clothes I'm wearing likely came from another country. This phone was not made here. It was likely made in another country and sent here. We just would not have those things if we weren't globalized. If a 7-year-old boy could be thrown out of school, oh, perfect! I love school things because I work in a school. If a 7-year-old boy can be thrown out of school for saying his teacher is cute, but hosting a sexual exploration or diversity class in grade school is perfectly acceptable, you might live in a nation that was founded by geniuses but is run by idiots. Okay, so a 7-year-old would be what, a first grader, second grader? I don't believe schools in mass. There might be a few out there, but I wouldn't expect so. I don't think schools in mass are teaching children about sexual exploration or diversity. Like in second grade. Here's what I learned when I was in second grade. I learned, oh, Judaism does this. They have a fun little game like a dreidel, and that was to be better informed about the different type of religions. I remember that being a thing, but I don't ever remember anything sexual until 5th grade when we had to do the sexual whatever. Like, it's a program that they have. A lot of Americans have this. Utah specifically has this. But that's a 5th grade thing, and that wouldn't be a 7th grader or a 7-year-old. That would be a 10 or 11-year-old, right? Because we want to hit them right before these changes start happening to them. Better education makes people smarter. I think a diversity class in grade school is perfectly acceptable. I don't know. I think that they are. I want my students to be informed. I want my students making good decisions. I don't want my students doing things without understanding the consequences. I prefer them to know that there's issues instead of having it be swept under the rug and have them figure it out on their own. Kids these days, especially with these phones, especially with all this, they're going to find these things out real quick. They're going to find these things out real fast. And if you're not educating your children about all of these things and staying caught up, then they're going to be ahead of you on these things. They're going to know all of these things. It's going to be a problem. So I would prefer to, in situations that are acceptable, I'd rather be in control of teaching the children a little bit better about these things so that we don't have those issues when they're 17, 18, 19, and they're trying to make careers for themselves. But that's just me. And again, it's a deeper discussion. It's a Gishgalp. There's a lot of points here, a lot of different things that we could talk about. And this is one that I would rather people be educated and know what they're talking about than not. And just going through life as if a stork brings children to parents and then figuring things out on their own. I'd prefer people to be educated. If hard work and success is met with higher taxes and more government regulation, and intrusion while not working is rewarded with food stamps, quick checks, Medicaid benefits, subsidized housing, and free cell phones, you might live in a nation that was founded by geniuses but is run by idiots. Okay. So, we can talk about this. Okay, if hard work and success are met, is met. If hard work and success is met with higher taxes, more government regulation, and intrusion while not working is rewarded with food stamps. Okay. So it seems like, again, this kind of goes to things like low-income families, right? Or even homeless people. I mean, put yourself in the mindset of a homeless person who can't live day to day. You just don't have any money. If there was a federal program for that person and they got on it, the odds of them improving their life, it increases, right? But if we just leave the homeless there and we get a fire hose and we kick them out and we just go somewhere but don't go here, eventually those people are going to probably resort to criminalism. If they can't make money on the side of a road or whatever, doing the things that they're doing, then they're going to steal. These are human beings. They need food. They need it's that I forget the name, but it's that hierarchy of needs, right? You need these things. This is specifically what you need. And these types of programs, again, a lot of people are saying, well, I did it myself. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and I did it, and I'm a good person, and why do I have to pay more so that those people who didn't work get those rewards? Well, hey, isn't that the kind of society that we want? I didn't go to church often as a kid, but when I did, that seemed to be what was preached often. Look out for your neighbor. If they need some food, we give them some food. I know that the Mormon Church here in Utah has, even for people who are not a part of the church, I know that for a while, me and my mom had to, my mother had to like go and volunteer. All they said was, hey, we want you to volunteer for a couple weeks, couple hours, couple weeks, and then we'll put you on this program. We'll give you some free food. Was it the best food? No, it wasn't. Right? It's like it's interesting. It's like I feel like people who've never been on food stamps or WIC checks, I just don't feel like they know how restricted these things are. A free cell phone, it's like, yeah, it's a free cell phone, but it's not gonna be like the iPhone 10, and the internet. Oh my goodness, the free internet that they've given out, like Comcast, for instance, gave out free internet to students because of the pandemic, especially because people can't afford the internet, things like this, and that became a problem because those internet speeds were not good enough for even one student to be on the internet Zoom call, let alone their two sisters or brothers who also had school at the same time. It was a bad system, and I think we found that out. So again, this is a little bit of a talking point that when you actually go into the policy of it, it just doesn't make any sense. And then even if it did, even if I granted that hard work and success is met with higher taxes, and life is harder for you, and the government hounds you more, and it's not as fun, and like it's like, okay, well, hey man, like it's kind of like that show where the boss has to disguise himself and become one of the workers, and then he gets a new appreciation for what low class workers have to put up with in their own companies. Like I challenge rich people. Cool. All right. Well, you go live. You go live like somebody who's on food stamps, WIC checks. Working 2, maybe 3 jobs just to pay bills and to have a family and stuff. It's not nearly as easy as you think. And I'm not gonna say that being rich is easy either. Hard work and success, yeah. To get there, you need hard work, and you need higher level qualities to sustain that than you do down here in the simple life of food stamps and WIC checks. It's 2 completely different lives, and I don't think these people nearly know enough about each other or how things work. And you'll constantly hear poor people on the left argue that there needs to be higher taxes and things like this on corporations, and all of this. And then it's like, well, okay, well, you just don't understand how corporations work, right? And then people on the right just don't understand what a poor family goes through. You just don't get it. You just don't get it. So people need to be a little bit more open-minded in this one, I think. We're all humans. We're all trying to do our best. If you pay your mortgage faithfully, denying yourself the newest big screen TV. Okay, so this one's loaded, by the way. This is what a loaded point looks like. He's running out of ideas. If you pay your mortgage faithfully, denying yourself the newest big screen TV. Like, this one seems personal, like this actually happened to him. While your neighbor buys iPhones, timeshares, a wall-sized do-it-all plasma screen TV, and new cars, and the government forgives his debt when he defaults on his mortgage. You might live in a nation that was founded by geniuses, but it was run by idiots. Okay, so defaults on his mortgage. This is probably like bankruptcy and things like that. It's like, well, fair enough. Let's change that. Here's what I hate. I hate going around my town and seeing people, or seeing businesses that are selling cars. No money, doesn't matter. We'll get you in a car today, because these are predatory loans that they're doing. They're going to sell this person a car for like $8,000 plus a like crazy interest rate, and they're going to make tons of money off of that poor person who has no choice but to go to that low class car dealership. I think it's very predatory behavior, and I don't really like it. This one, though, again, he's saying, well, I'm good, I'm fine. This is another fallacy. It's, what is it, survivors? Is it survivor fallacy? Let's see here. Debate fallacy, survivor. I think it's called, survivorship bias or survival bias is the logical error. It's a logical error of concentrating on the people or things that made it past some selection process, or overlooking those that did not, typically because of their lack of visibility. This can lead to some false conclusions in several different ways. It's a selection bias, right? So I did it. Why couldn't that guy do it? Why does he get that and I don't? Life's not fair. I don't know what to tell you. There's going to be loads of people who don't get these $1,400. I think they're going to settle at $1,400 paychecks coming up in February for COVID relief. And people who make over 75,000 a year, well, they don't get those things. It's like, why do you get it but not me? It's because you don't need it. You don't need it. I mean, if we were doing this through vaccinations, right? Let's talk about the COVID vaccine. If somebody came in and they said, "Well, I don't need I had the COVID vaccine months ago, and you're giving them out for free now." Well, why does he get that but I don't? It's like, because you don't need it. You don't need it. Wait, what? It's very strange. Like this type of stuff is very, instead of being reflective and looking into his own life, he's looking at other people. And again, isn't this another Sunday school thing? Covet thy neighbor, or whatever whatever it is like, you just live your life, be happy, enjoy, have fun. I mean, that guy's doing his thing, you do your thing. I mean, if you want to change it, then get in government, change it, get people to agree with you. But I mean, your neighbor's the one who's gonna have to vote for you, and if you're gonna take things away from him that he's doing or whatever, then I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I'll even concede this is gonna be crazy, and some of you are gonna think I'm nuts. I'll concede that Trump is smart. Yeah, Trump is smart in his taxes, doing things the way he does things. He does make money off of the way he does his taxes because he's smarter, but he also has the opportunity to be smarter. Someone like me who can't afford an economic person or a tax person to look into my stuff specifically and try to find ways that I can lower my taxes, I just don't have the time for that, right? I'm not going at Trump going, well, why does he get that and I don't? Because again, a lot of people call me communist, a lot of people call me Marxist, but that's just not the case. Again, these things just don't pan out. All right. It being stripped of your constitutional right to defend yourself makes you more safe, according to the government. You might live in a nation that was founded by geniuses, but is run by idiots. This is something that I've kind of changed my stance on over the years. 10 years ago, when I first started getting into politics, I was a big no-gun guy. I don't like guns. I still don't like guns, but I'm not going to be, I'm not going to take them away. Now, when this point usually comes up on Facebook posts, a lot of the times people will say, if we vote for Democrats, or Biden, or Hillary, or whoever on the left that they decide to put in this situation, they're going to take our guns. I mean, we're 4 days in to the Biden administration. I think he's done multiple executive orders, and I don't believe guns were on any of those. He's a very, very centrist person. I don't think you're going to be seeing that as a thing. Now, the gun argument is crazy. When we have 1.2 guns to every person in America, getting rid of them is a Herculean effort that I'm not even going to tackle. It's better to just deal with the problems that we have, like school shooters, and increase mental health, and increase what we do for our kids in schools, and educate them better, and be a little bit more of an accepting society so that we can cut down on that thing. I think that's a little bit more cost effective than taking away all the guns. And I'm going to make the same argument here in a minute for immigration, all right? Because we're about to get to the second half of this. Let's see if I got this right. If you cross the North Korean border illegally, you get 12 years hard labor. Okay, so again, this is interesting. He's comparing the United States of America to different countries. I'm gonna read it, but this is crazy. If you cross the Iranian border illegally, you're detained indefinitely. I don't even know if these things are true. I'm just going to accept that they are. I don't do a whole lot of like Middle East or looking into other countries' politics. I'm very, very interested in United States politics. But other countries' arguments, I don't. They do their thing. I like to do my thing here. If you cross the Iranian border, you're detained indefinitely. If you cross Afghan, you get shot. If you cross Saudi Arabian border, you'll be jailed. If you cross Chinese border, you'll be never heard from again. Again, these are things like, really? Is that what happens? Even if it is, it's like, yeah, that's why we don't want to be like those countries. What's interesting here is the person who wrote this second part is clearly not the person in the first part, because this guy seemingly doesn't want there to be law and order. This guy seems to be a guy that would happily shoot illegal immigrants because he doesn't like them. It's kind of strange. It's a little sus. I mean, across the Venezuelan border, you'll be branded a spy. Your fate will be sealed. If you cross the Cuban border, you'll be thrown into a political prison. If you cross the U.S. border illegally, you get a job. Yes, a driver's license, possibly. Social security card, yes, well, I mean, they pay into it, why wouldn't they? Welfare, of course. Food stamps, credit cards, subsidized rent. The credit card thing is because these credit card companies are going to be making more money than lose on immigrants. Subsidized rent or a loan to buy a house. Free education, free healthcare. Maybe. I mean, you do get free education in grade school level for children. And then you do get free emergency healthcare. Those are the only two things that are kind of barred. A lobbyist in Washington, billions of dollars worth of public documents printed in your language. Oh. In your language. Oh. This is what I mean. Like, you can agree with a lot of these things and say, well, I don't think that should be true. And we can argue this back and forth, and we're about to. But this, in your language, what does that mean? What does that mean? Your language. It's very, very interesting. Do they mean English? Spanish? Do they mean... I don't know. We have a lot of refugees from Africa as well. What does that mean? I'm assuming it means Spanish. This is probably a southern border guy. The right to carry your country's flag while you protest that you don't get enough respect. The right to carry your country's flag while you protest that you don't get enough respect. Oh, okay. And in many instances, you can vote. So he's mad about people waving their little Mexican flags when they protest things. I just want to make sure I had a firm grasp on the situation. You don't. Whoever wrote this does not have a firm grasp at all. This dude is drinking. He's nuts. I don't know. Something's up with this guy. So now that we're done with that, let's talk about immigration. Let's talk, because it seems to be that the whole point of this is anti-immigration. There's a lot of government overreach stuff. This guy up here seems like a libertarian, wants to live in the Wild Wild West, and it's like, okay, well, we've done that, and then we improved. We got better, because living in the Wild Wild West wasn't all that cool for a lot of people. And then down here, this person seems to be very, very, very anti-immigration. And I think immigration is pretty similar to guns, but for the opposite side, right? Now, let's say, let's see here. Let's see, do immigrants pay taxes? What was the article I was reading? The IRS estimates that about 6 million unauthorized immigrants file individual income tax returns each year. A nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office indicates that 50 to 75% of unauthorized immigrants pay federal, state, and local taxes. So over half. Let's even just say half. All right? That would mean that we have about maybe 12 million unauthorized individuals. And let's say we knew where they were. And let's say that we knew who they were. And let's say if overnight, just like that, we could deport them, no problems whatsoever. Would people do it? And I would say that this is kind of a flawed argument. Just like guns. It's like if I knew where all the guns were in America and I decided let's get rid of them right away overnight, would we do it? Would it cause problems? Yeah, it would. It would cause a lot of problems. You might see like a purge-like thing. You might see people going around, no guns? Cool, I'm going to commit a crime then. What are you going to do? Shoot me? You don't have a gun. I know you don't have a gun, right? It's a problem. This is the same problem, but economically instead. The economic impact of illegal immigrants is massive. These people are paying taxes, but they don't get some of the benefits that we do when we pay taxes. Also, I saw in a report, I read a couple of these, and I don't know if I'm going to find it, but in one of these down here, it was like, they had, there was like 100,000 people or whatever, and they had determined what their tax rate was, and illegal immigrants get taxed at like 11% or something like that, or 8. It was either 8 or 11%, and normal Americans or whatever you want to call citizens, they get taxed at 5.4% or so. So they're making money off of illegal immigrants, and illegal immigrants don't get the benefits, right? Again, yes, their children do get some benefits, and yes, they might be able to vote, and yes, they pay into Social Security and they'll get those benefits as well. But they don't get all the other things, right? Like if you're an illegal immigrant and you don't have like a driver's license, like you can't get one. You don't get to drive. You don't get to do all of these things that normal citizens do. Yeah, is it a problem? Sure. But they pay taxes. They pay a lot of taxes. Illegal immigrants who are here pay like taxes when they go to a store, and they fund this. So what do we do to fix it? I think this is where we have the issue, right? And this is what we should be talking about, rather than is it a problem? I think we all know it's a problem, right? Just like abortion, it's a tough situation, it's a problem. We should do better about it. Elections, yeah, massive. Is it accurate? Is it up to date? I don't think so. I think it's a little bit antiquated, a little bit archaic. We need to do a little bit better on it. I'm with immigration reform as well. We need to figure this out because it's not fair, right? And we want to make things a little bit more fair. We want everybody on a pretty even ground, right? Everyone's equal here in America. That's what we try to say. That's what we try to go for. And I think the solution is not to kick them out. We kick them out, we have to spend money to get rid of them, if they go at all, right? If they don't go peacefully, then it causes issues, and then it ramps up a lot of angry things, and then their family who is here legally, it causes them to be more likely to be like radicalized in some weird way, right? This is not the way to do things. Violence begets violence, right? Negativity begets negativity. It just doesn't make sense to me that we would do that. We're spending a bunch of local and federal money to get them out if we choose to go this route, if we choose to deport them because they're not here legally, right? It just doesn't make sense, all right, economically. Also, opening up the borders and letting everybody come in also doesn't make sense economically. So we need to find a happy middle ground. That's what the immigration reform is all about, and that's what people are going to work on. And this is an argument that we need to be better at discussing on Facebook with our family members. This is something we need to be better at. I'm happy that Mark came out and said, hey, then state your positions. I hope I did, in some smart kind of way. Again, I didn't want it to be an hour video, but here we are at 46 minutes. So I'm going to kind of cut this up. But I mean, a simple Google search into these things, it's easy to post something to Facebook and not research it and not know and just kind of like feel good about yourself. But many of the things that are being posted are subliminally racist, not cool. This one didn't seem that way. This one felt very, how come he gets something and I don't? Very like selfish, very like whiny. Like there's ways to fix these problems, and the way is to talk about politics. The thing that you were told, I was told as a kid, we don't talk about politics at the dinner table. We don't talk about politics when we go to like Warm River. We don't talk politics at all. If we had grown up civically educated a little bit better, I don't think this would be an issue. I can barely talk to my friends about politics because it hurts their head to the point that they get headaches. It's like, why? Why is it such a pain? This is what we should be doing. We should be having open conversations about these things. And I think posting things on Facebook is scary. Gish gallops like this, it's scary. Because I don't believe people to be for some of these things that they say that they're for. Or if you actually go into the small arguments that are in these things, then you'll find out real quick, oh, I didn't know that, or oh, I didn't know that. I love politics. I look at this stuff every day. I'll listen to podcasts. I listen to everybody too. I'm not just like one of those people who listens to TYT. I will listen to Dave Rubin. I don't think he's a very intelligent guy, but I'll listen to his points because I need to hear what his listeners are listening to and hear where everybody's at. I'll listen to Ben Shapiro. I'll listen to like Alex Jones, but he's just an entertainer in a nutshell. I'll listen to Tucker Carlson, and then I'll listen to the lefties. I'll listen to people like TYT. I'll listen to my YouTube streamers and people who this is their job for 8 hours a day. They constantly cover things like this, and they give their thoughts and views. I think that it's a better way to live life, and educating our younger generations in civics and kind of reforming our education system. And Terry, I believe you were a preschool teacher. I think you taught very, very young people. So it's like, okay, that's a little bit different, right? But when we get to middle school and high school, I think teaching kids to civically engage is the thing that we should be doing. When I was in high school, again, I brought this up in the last video, and if you didn't watch it, okay, but this video, I grew up in school. All I was taught was there's 3 branches of government: the executive, and that's the president; the legislative, and that's the House and the Senate, and then there's the Supreme Court, and then there's very basic, they don't go into it, and then it's like, hey, let's watch 12 Angry Men. And oh hey, we're gonna tell you about all the presidents and all the cool things that they did, and then you have to memorize the presidents, and that's it. That's all I got. They didn't talk about the current events, and if they did, they didn't want to go into it too deeply. We absolutely should go into the arguments more deeply. We should have these arguments every single day, in my opinion, in schools. And that's why I love where I work right now. I love where I work right now because they don't seem to be too upset at having children as young as first grade read the Constitution. We do it every year. And then you start there. Start with the basis. We have the Constitution. Okay, now we need to bring in, okay, immigration, okay, abortion. Where does this fall on the line? We have those debates. We have those arguments. Voting matters. Elections matter. We learned that 4 years ago with populism, and it turned into a pretty awful show. And now we're going to see what a centrist president like Biden looks like. Trying to unify the country, trying to bring Republicans on board with far left, far right, pulling on both sides like a tug of war, and then you've got Biden right in the middle trying to stay on the left. But I think we're going to see a lot of things like the omnibus bill, where it's going to be big deals negotiated on the floors of the Senate with people like Amy Klobuchar and Hawley and Cruz and all these people. They're gonna negotiate these things. And it's going to come down, yes, and it's, as it always does, because this is politics. This is the game of politics. It's going to come down to, I'm okay to do that because I don't need to run again here in 2 years. Would term limits make sense? We need to discuss these things, right? Even if they do add DC and, Puerto Rico as a state. Yeah, but even though that would kind of edge the difference in Democrats' favor, you're seeing that the Democratic Party is changing too. It's all going to be super, super interesting. I love this stuff. I'm gonna again watch this on your own time. I don't even think people are watching these videos because, again, like, this is what I feel like. However long you've been watching this video, I'm like, God damn, stop talking. This is what I feel when I read posts like these. It's like, oh my goodness. Pick an article. Pick one, and then we can discuss it pretty in depth. But when you just skip on top of the lake on some of these things, it's like you're not going into depth on any of these. There's no, I mean, give me some concrete proof of a 7-year-old being thrown out of school for calling his teacher cute, and then give me the full context of that, because I just don't think it happens. I just don't think it happens. It's interesting. It's interesting. And Facebook is super interesting. I have a lot of people, like even Chad. Chad says, well, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Well, then Chad came home and said, man, why don't we have DraftKings in Utah? It's like, well, if you were civically engaged and you knew who runs Utah, then you would know why we don't have DraftKings in Utah. And why we don't have a football team in Utah. It's because no one's civically engaged. Everyone wants to blindly live life without, being involved in politics. And I think that that's a flaw. I think that's a seriously bad flaw that we need to fix. I have arguments for why we should be doing things a little bit more to the left of what even Biden is doing, but that's for another time. That's for another video. I feel like I've been rambling, and I probably have been rambling. Again, my arguments are mine, right? And there's things I probably could have argued better even in this video, but that's what I live for. I love to talk about these things because I think it's important. Okay, I need to return a phone call. My mom called, so I'm gonna hop out of here. Terry, thank you for posting because it gave me something to do on my Sunday. Mark, thank you for the conversation, and Chad, your relevant opinion. Even thank you for that. You just keep lifting those weights, and ciao.